Stay prepared for the up and downs. Life is like a seesaw. Some say it's a bitch, man.
What's going on, guys? Just another critic. Welcome back to the channel. Week 7 predictions continued. We're talking about Alabama Crimson Tide, number 1 in the nation, taking on number 24, Texas A&M. This game will be an away game for Alabama at Kyle Field. For those of you betting on the game, Alabama right now 2-3 against the spread, A&M 3-2 against the spread. As far as the statistics go, Alabama right now averaging 51 points per game, allowing 14 points per game. Offense right now throwing for 380 per game and 174 on the ground. Defense allowing 190 per game through the air and 134 on the ground. A&M, on the other hand, putting up 32 points per game. Defense allowing 17 points per game. Offense putting up 292 through the air and 133 on the ground. Defense right now allowing 191 through the air and 108 on the ground. And so obviously, I wasn't really sure if I should cover this matchup because I think it's almost obvious who is going to win this game. But at the same time, when I just changed my perspective and thought of how A&M could disrupt Alabama in this matchup. And really, I just looked at Alabama's O-line, to be quite honest. Right now, Alabama playing very well, right? Obviously, they've got Tua Tagovailoa and those set of wide receivers. Defense right now still very young. Nick Saban will be starting 4 true freshmen on that side of the ball in this matchup. So whenever you're starting young players, not to say that these guys can't, fulfill the responsibilities at those positions. It's just that they're young, inexperienced. That always leaves really possibility for mistakes and areas of exposure for Texas A&M to expose. And so while A&M hasn't been playing their greatest football, and the best team that they beat, Arkansas, and that's not saying much, right? Started the season with Texas State 41-7, lost to Clemson 10-24, which we thought, whoa, okay, maybe this A&M team is all right defensively, and they really just couldn't put it together offensively versus Clemson. And then they went out, blew out Lamar, and then they were playing at home versus Auburn, where we were like, man, this is a home game. A&M's got this. Auburn hasn't been playing that great, and then what do you know? Auburn comes in and absolutely stomps A&M at home. I know the game ended 28-20, but it really wasn't that close. And so then struggling with Arkansas just, a week or so ago. So coming into the season, we were like, whoa, this A&M team's going to be way better than they were a season ago. They look phenomenal last year, and now Jimbo Fisher gets an extra year with these guys. He's going to turn them around, turn this program around, and they're going to compete, with some of the better teams and bigger dogs in the SEC. That just hasn't been the reality. What I can say right now is that while the season is practically lost as far as competing for any type of championship, the defense has had its moments. I think obviously the biggest issue right in the Auburn game, or really in general, was just their inability to really play consistently in the secondary and in coverage. They allowed 297 to Arkansas and then 268 to Clemson. Held Auburn to 106, but we know Bo Nix isn't going to go out there and shred you up. A lot of the stuff they gave up was pretty much the speed sweeps to the outside, those jet sweeps to Anthony Schwartz, and Auburn just did a really good job of sealing off those edges and letting their guys really take that speed and do what they do in space. And so while this matchup, like I said, it probably has an obvious outcome to it. The spread was 17.5 the last time I looked at it. ESPN at the moment has this game, their matchup predictor has Alabama at a 83.7% chance to win this game. And so I think this game, to sum it up, this game is going to come down to whether or not Alabama's O-line can step up and play well against better athletes, which we're going to see from A&M. And like I said, man, these A&M defensive linemen, these dudes that they have up front, they're very good in between the tackles. So if Alabama's really going to find any success, it's going to be on the outside. It's going to be on the outside. If you just look at not the history, but what A&M has done throughout the season versus some pretty good opponents that have pretty good run games in Clemson, in Auburn, in really anybody. If you look at those matchups, those teams really they didn't have consistent success running in between the tackles. Most of their success came from running the ball outside and getting their guys into space. And so it's going to be a game won at the line of scrimmage if A&M's going to have a chance, and getting to the quarterback, getting to Tua, getting in his face, and disrupting the timing. And then Alabama, on the other hand, can their defense step up this week? Are we going to see a better Alabama defense from a week ago, where they allowed 31 points to Ole Miss, gave up almost 300 rushing yards, and then, close to 200 yards through the air? This isn't, a normal Alabama defense we're used to seeing. I don't know what's going on. I couldn't tell you. They've got the same athletes. They've got a defensive coordinator. They're just not getting the production. I don't know what it is. If you know, tell me. Obviously, they have 4 true freshmen who are going to be starting in this game. But at the same time, those guys are highly touted recruits, right? 4 or 5-star guys. I understand there's things that they aren't going to be able to put forward without having that in-game experience. I understand that. But when you're playing against these lesser opponents in, New Mexico State, Duke, Southern Miss, Ole Miss, even South Carolina, who hasn't looked very good this season, that's where you get your experience. And I don't know if they'll be better in this matchup versus A&M, because they struggled versus Ole Miss, who had a dual-threat quarterback, and that's exactly what they're going to see on Saturday versus Kellen Mond. Kellen Mond, dual-threat guy with much better athletes than these teams that they've already played, with much better receivers. And so while Alabama has looked phenomenal offensively versus these, lesser opponents, defensively they haven't looked great versus these lesser opponents. And so coming into this matchup, the question is whether or not this defense is going to be able to play well consistently. And I'm not sure that they're there yet. And so for those reasons, I think this game can be a lot closer than it will, eventually end up being. I do think Alabama will probably win this game by 2 or 3 touchdowns, maybe even more if the defense steps up. But I'm not sure they're ready to do that just yet. I think this is one of those games where they're going to get punched in the mouth early. And Tua is honestly probably going to have to carry this team to victory. But like I said, I do think they'll be able to figure out A&M eventually, and not necessarily stop them, but they'll be able to slow them down. And so we'll see how it turns out. I think Alabama wins this game 51-24. Once again, my final score is 51-24, but I will continue to harp on the concerns. The four true starting freshmen on defense for Alabama, and they haven't gotten consistent play from really anybody on that defensive side of the ball. And so coming into this game, I think it's just a tough matchup for that defense. Seeing another dual-threat quarterback, I do think that Ole Miss game will help them to, have better preparation for a dual-threat quarterback. But I don't think they'll be able to stop him all day. I think it's something that all they can do is really slow him down and really try to contain him. And then just facing better athletes overall. On offense, we know what Tua and those wide receivers can do if he's given a clean pocket, but that's going to be the question. Can they give him a clean pocket? I don't think they're going to find a lot of success in between the tackles. If they are going to be running the ball successfully, it's going to be through jet sweeps and getting the ball to the outside with sweeps, jet sweeps, screens in the backfield, and quick screens to the outside. And so I do think Alabama wins this game, like I said, but don't be surprised if it's close early. And so with all that being said, once again, my final score was 51-24. But really, at the end of the day, A&M can make a game out of this. So keep an eye out. Hope you guys got some value from this episode. Hope you guys got some good information from this prediction. But with all that being said, I appreciate you guys for listening on the channel or on the podcast. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, evening, or night. This is Just Another Critic. Catch you in the next one. Peace.
Yeah, stay prepared for the up and downs. Rappers I can see.